And today we get a chance to talk to from the Seattle Sounders, the MLS Cup champion Sounders, Jordan Morris. Jordan, how you doing?
I'm good. I'm good. Thank you for having me.
Thanks so much for joining us. Talking about Capital One's Banking Reimagined tour here a little bit later, something that you're involved with. But, we were just reading up on this morning. You're a high school All-American from Mercer Island, first of all. First team All Pac-12, 13, 14, and 15. Pac-12 Player of the Year in 2015. You won the Herman Trophy, which is like the Heisman Trophy equivalent in soccer in 2015. Won a national championship game against Clemson, and then your MLS Rookie of the Year in 2016. You ever think about just retiring right now?
No, it's been I've been very lucky. It's been a good last year, and was happy to bring the cup back to Seattle.
Yeah, and so pretty awesome career as far as for you. But you've worked really hard, and talk a little bit about that because I know everybody looks at all of these awards that you've won and everything, but there's been a lot of work behind all of this.
Yeah, definitely. I grew up on Mercer Island, and I was fortunate because when the Sounders came to Seattle as an MLS franchise, it definitely gave me a goal that I wanted to accomplish, and it pushed me to work really hard and hopefully one day get there. So when I was a little kid, that was very good motivation to work hard and keep getting better at soccer. So that was obviously great when they came to Seattle.
Well, I read your Players Tribune story, and you can write too, Jordan.
They actually wrote that for me. So yeah. But
Jordan, you didn't have to say that.
I'm not. No, it's okay.
It's said
I don't
by
want
Jordan Morris.
No, I know. I don't want to take. Well, okay. So what I did is they write like a first-person essay. Like I speak for them, and then they write it out for me.
Oh, so you had a ghostwriter help you out?
Yeah.
Okay.
Definitely.
All right.
I'm an okay writer.
Okay.
Of course
Yeah,
you
I
are.
didn't want to take credit for something I didn't.
He's a Stanford guy. I finally get a fellow Stanford guy in here. We usually get Cougs and Huskies in here, Jordan.
Yeah. All right,
No,
but I
we don't
really,
like-
but
we don't
but I
like those.
enjoy whoever wrote the story. I enjoyed it.
Yeah.
So I was hoping. I mean, there are a lot of things I want to get to that were in that story, but since you brought it up, I like the part where you said the first game that you went to, the first Sounders game at CenturyLink, and how that really inspired you and motivated you, thinking, okay, I want to get back here. I'm a kid now who's playing soccer, but I want to get back here and play for this team someday.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, that was the inspiration. All started there when I went to that first game and saw how unbelievable the fans were, how excited the city was to have a soccer team. I was like, this, I turned to my brother. I said, I want to be playing on that field someday. So that was great motivation to keep pushing.
Now, Jordan talked about all the accolades and everything, and it makes it sound like you just kind of cruised through. But you're also a guy with, and we found out in the article, with type 1 diabetes. And do you have a tattoo that says T1D?
I do have a tattoo on my forearm here. But yeah, I was diagnosed when I was 9 years old, and part of my life now it was definitely challenging at first. But I was very lucky. My dad's a doctor, and my mom, was a nurse, so they helped me out a lot. And got this tattoo probably 2 years ago. I was supposed to be wearing a bracelet around, and I never did. So my mom actually came up with the idea to get a tattoo.
Yeah, that's a great idea. And then, coming from a little bit of adversity, and I think, look, you've learned to manage it and everything, it sounds like. But, those kinds of things, they make you who you are, right?
Definitely. Yeah, I wouldn't be the person I am today without diabetes. It taught me to be responsible at such a young age, having to deal with this disease, and I honestly don't think I would have gotten into Stanford if I hadn't learned that trade at such a young age. So it's obviously can be very tough, but it made me into the person I am today.
Now, you said you had a significant point where you finally learned how to handle it and how to manage it. What was that like? When and how did that happen?
It was more of a case of, it's still hard today to manage it. It can be very unpredictable, but it was more of a case when I was 14 or 15 and the Sounders had come to town, and I really started focusing on soccer, and I knew that I wanted to be a professional athlete. That I told myself, I'm not going to let this hold me back from accomplishing my goals. And my parents were worried about it because they thought it was going to be tough. And of course I had doubts every once in a while having to deal with it. But for me, it was kind of just trying to put that in my head that I really wasn't going to let this hold me back. And I love speaking out about that, talking to younger diabetics and trying to inspire them as well.
Yeah, tell us about that, because you're going around and talking to kids and sort of, helping people out in that area. Tell us about some of those things you've done.
Yeah, it's great. I know that when I was a kid, newly diagnosed, I looked up to guys like Adam Morris and Jay Cutler, had diabetes, were accomplishing what they wanted to accomplish. So I know that I want to try and be that person to give back and talk to the younger generation. I work with JDRF, Juvenile Diabetes Research Foundation in Seattle, and I'm trying to get to go into children's a little bit more and talk to newly diagnosed kids and stuff like that, because it's something I'm very passionate about, and hopefully I can make a difference in their lives like those guys did for me. So.
And Jordan, when you were diagnosed, it sounded like from the Players Tribune story that it was 2 weeks before the Seahawks played at Green Bay in that 2003 playoff game.
Yeah.
And I loved your lead on that story because your parents saw that you were crying, and they thought it was about finding out about diabetes, and yet it was more about the Seahawks losing.
Yeah, I was a huge diehard Seahawks fan, Sonics and Mariners when I was young, and I remember watching that game. It was where Matt Hasselbeck said, we want the ball, we're going to score. Yeah. And he, unfortunately threw the interception, and I started crying, and my dad came up to my room, and it's like, oh, it's going to be okay, buddy. Like, we'll work through this. And I was like, no, like, I'm mad the Seahawks lost, So, but that just shows how much I love Seattle sports, and I'm so happy to be back playing in my hometown.
Yeah, and you had a chance now, and tell us a little bit about this, because and I know that soccer is very prestigious in Europe, and you had a chance to go to Germany and train a little bit. But did that moment with the Seattle Seahawks and that whole thing sort of cement the fact that I want to be a Seattle athlete?
Yeah, I mean, I went over there to to test it out a little bit, and I feel like it was good for me to know that, because if I hadn't, maybe I'd be thinking, what if? But when I went over there, it made my decision clear that I really wanted to come back and play in my hometown, play in front of my family, play for the city that I love. So it was a little bit of a tough decision, but when I went over there, it really cemented in my mind that I wanted to be in Seattle, and I'm very happy with the decision.
Pretty cool, though.
We're happy too.
Yeah, pretty cool finding out what it must be like for you to go out there and hear your name being chanted from the crowd.
Yeah, definitely. That's, because I used to be a fan. I used to go to all the games, and obviously still a fan, but used to go to all the games, and that was the coolest part for me, I thought, was when they announced the starting lineup and the PA announcer announces the first name and the whole crowd announces the last name. And so I was like, that's, I think, what I'm going to remember. And when my first game, we were standing in the tunnel and I heard my last name, I just got chills, and it was pretty crazy to kind of go from up in the stands to down on the field.
When did you figure out that you were pretty good at this?
I'm definitely not a very confident person. So, but when I was 18 or so, I was playing for the Sounders Academy team, actually, and had a pretty decent year there, and I was able to train with the pros. Every once in a while they would have us come in and practice, and you kind of can measure yourself up against them, and I in those trainings, like, oh, it's not, I'm not too far off from getting to where I want to be. So I think those measuring sticks and those practices were pretty important.
Yeah, I love what I saw on your Twitter profile, and the part that I liked the most was that be kind, gracious, and humble. And sometimes with athletes, you don't necessarily see that, and I don't even know you, but I appreciate that about you already.
No, thank you. I'm I love being an athlete. I love playing sports, and it's a very important part of my life, but I would much rather be remembered as a good person and trying to give back. And I think that's all due to my parents. They raised me and my siblings very well, and so for me, that's also a very important part of life.
Do you get recognized walking around Seattle?
Every once in a while. It's not anything, not like some of the bigger guys on the Seahawks or anything, I'm sure, but every once in a while.
Yeah. Well, talk about this season, because you guys started off kind of rough, 6-12-2 in your first 20, and then you guys go 8-2-4. You had a coaching change with Brian Schmetzer taking over. Talk about this season and how much of it had to do with Schmetzer.
Yeah, it was definitely a roller coaster, and my first year, it makes you realize how things are going to go up and down pretty quickly in some seasons. It's such a long season, so things aren't always going to be smooth sailing. But for me, I loved Ziggy. When he was there, he was a great coach, gave me an opportunity, and nothing but great things to say about him. But Brian came in and did a really good job, and kind of established an identity for the team that the guys bought into. And then, of course, Nicholas Ladero came over and played, and he was we got him halfway through the season. He was a game changer. So I think the combination of those two was kind of helped to turn things around.
That's Schmetzer, Jim.
Yes.
Okay, that's how you pronounce that.
I noticed
we
that.
got it one time, not the second time.
That's okay. But winning the MLS Cup in Toronto and everything that went with it, the plane ride home must have been fun. The parade, everything. What was it like?
Oh yeah, it was surreal. We really wanted to have the game at home, obviously, but when we found out it was there, we just went there with a job to do, and it wasn't the prettiest game. Didn't even get a shot on goal, but we pulled it out because it's a tough environment to go into Toronto and play. And all that matters was that we ended up winning the game. But the plane ride home was great. We had a party at the hotel after the game where the families could come, and then the parade. I'll always remember the parade. It was a very, very special day.
Your goalkeeper did a tremendous job in that game.
Yeah, that save, I'll never forget that. It's the best save I've ever seen in person, and in such a crucial time. And once he made that save, I was like, okay, everything's going our way. I think it's gonna work out for us. So
all right, so I'm going to be honest with you here. I'm a casual soccer fan, as in really, really, really casual soccer fan. And so I'm hoping you can answer this question for me. Do you think that instead of going to the shootout where guys are going one-on-one against the goalie, that you should have just gone ahead and continued to play? Or are you going to tell me, since I'm a casual soccer fan who doesn't know that much about the sport, that you guys are probably too tired to go any longer? Is that what it is?
Yeah, I mean, you play 120 minutes. It gets pretty tiring, and I think eventually someone would score, but maybe I guess they could start taking people off the field so it gets down to smaller numbers, make it a little bit easier to score. But I think the PKs need to come eventually because guys just get really tired.
So was that the dumbest question you've been asked on a sports radio?
No, not at all.
No, it wasn't bad?
No.
All right. How about this one? Why do you wear number 13?
My brother wore number 13. He got me into soccer, and I just kind of followed in his footsteps, and he wore that number, so I followed him. I don't know why he wore it, but
so it's certainly is not unlucky for you.
No, I like to think it isn't, but yeah, it's what I've always worn.
Jordan, you're here with the good people from Capital One, and Capital One's Banking Reimagined Tour is coming up here in Seattle at Westlake Park on February 17th and 18th. Tell us a little bit about that.
Yeah, it's awesome. I'm happy to be a part of this Banking Reimagined campaign, and I know for me, coming out of college, personal finance can be a scary thought, and for a lot of people it can, but what Capital One is really trying to do is empower people to feel, more confident in their relationship with money. And this tour, it's going across 10 states, bringing a big 54-foot truck to Seattle, like you said, Westlake Park, Friday and Saturday, and they have a lot of interactive experiences that you can do, selfie booth, augmented reality, stuff like that, where you can really figure out what's important to you, your values, what you want to spend your money on in the future, and set a goal on how to achieve that. So I really, look forward to working with them, and I think it's such an important thing to get a hold of.
What was that like the first time you got money? Because I went to Stanford because I got a scholarship. There's no way my parents could have afforded it. And I remember, it's probably illegal, but my agent gave me $2,000 before I got drafted.
Yeah.
And I thought, oh my God, this is like all the money in the world.
Yeah.
You're a young guy, and it's kind of backwards for athletes, right? You make the most amount of money probably that you're going to make in your life in the first 10 to 15 years.
Right.
And then after that, whereas with everybody else, it's opposite. So for younger people, well, for instance, I had some checks that I left in my sock drawer.
Okay.
Which is not sound financial advice, by the way. But, I just didn't even think I never had money before. And so it's important for younger people to understand and invest it wisely and realize that, hey, you've got a shelf life as an athlete.
Definitely. Yeah, I think the first thought was why taxes were so high. It took all the took all my money away. But no, I'm just kidding. But
we had a linebacker with the Seahawks,
yeah,
and he signed. Remember the kid that was he was a practice squad guy, and he's like, "Yeah, I got $8,000," and he goes, "Did you know the government takes like half?"
Yeah, yeah.
Like, yes, I did know that.
Yeah, that's part of it. So, but no, it's exciting, and I'm actually living back at home with my parents, so no rent
You're living at home.
Are
with
you
your
really?
parents.
Living at home, yeah.
Good for you.
Usually that's how we typify people who are fantasy football players, that they live in their mom and dad's basement. But you're a very highly successful guy, and you're living in your parents' basement.
Back at home, yeah. It's funny. So saving a little money that way, which is good.
That's smart.
I love it.
That's very smart.
Well, and you probably play for the love of the game anyway. I mean, you probably can't believe you're getting paid to do this.
Yeah, I mean, it's still so surreal to me that I never thought in a million years this would happen. So.
Yeah. So as a rookie, I'm always impressed when somebody who is a rookie, with the Seahawks. I was lost my rookie year in football in the NFL, and my second year coming back, I was like, oh man, finally I can relax and play. But man, you just went out there and right away. And so tell us about how were you able to do that, and was that a bigger jump than going from high school to college?
Yeah, I think it was definitely a bigger jump. And it was tough at first. There was 5 or so games where I wasn't scoring, and people were being, with social media, it's pretty easy to see how people were being negative. But for me, I think it was beneficial. I was fortunate enough to play for the national team when I was still in college, so I got exposed to some of these higher pressure situations before I became a professional. So when I made the jump to playing professionally, I kind of already had these experiences a little bit, so it made it a little easier to make that jump. But of course, every new situation is going to bring its new challenges, and it did. But definitely started feeling more confident as the year went on.
Sounders season starting March 4th in Houston, so it's coming up here in just a few weeks. And what can we expect from this season? I imagine everybody's going to be shooting for you this year.
Yeah, I think we'll have a target on our back a little bit, but we don't mind it, and we're excited to get back going and try and defend our title. I think the guys are gelling well together. A lot of new faces, but really good guys, and we're just excited to get going. So
we're talking to Jordan Morris from the MLS champion Seattle Sounders. And Jordan, some rapid fire questions here. Did you get your degree from Stanford?
I didn't.
You're going to go back and get it?
Yeah.
What's your major?
Science, technology, and society. It's a newer major there. I guess I'm closely related to a business degree, but they don't have an undergraduate one there.
Okay. How'd you pick 13, or did they just give you the number 13?
My brother actually was number 13, so I've always been 13. And
I already asked him that question.
Did he? Oh, I'm sorry.
No, that's okay.
Can confirm.
That's
What's
all right.
Yeah, we do that all the time on this show. Yeah,
totally fine.
I didn't like his answer.
You want to ask him about Drew Brees' contract?
Yeah. I asked. Never mind. You don't need to know that story. How about this? Who's your best buddy on the team?
Christian rolled on. He's been great.
Yeah. You have a girlfriend?
I don't.
Okay. Why is that?
I actually my girlfriend and I just broke up recently.
Okay.
So she.
Oh, no.
All right, I'm sorry.
Way to
I didn't mean
go.
to press
That's
you on
okay.
that.
You repeat a question
Well, I'm
and then
just
ask him a
thinking
question like that.
This might be like the most eligible bachelor in all of Seattle.
Oh, no.
Right here.
No, definitely not.
That could be. Can I end with a rapid fire question? It's a staple of all the interviews that I
Is
do.
it going to be something about the Cougs?
No, it doesn't have anything to do with the Cougs.
Right. Go ahead then.
I just want to know if you have a dog.
I do. 2 dogs.
You got 2
Oh,
dogs.
I love dogs. Yeah, I have a Bernese Mountain Dog. She's a year old, and then I have a Bichon, the small little white fluffy dogs. She's 8 now, I think, 7 or 8. So
Oh, cool.
yeah, a lot of fun.
Those mountain dogs are awesome.
They're
looking.
awesome. Yeah, she's a very pretty dog and still has so much energy, but she's huge, so she needs to be careful. But
Yeah.
Are you
very cute.
disappointed a little bit that the German Shepherd won the Westminster Kennel Club Dog Show? I mean, I thought it was an upset. I thought the dog with dreads was going to win, and yet it was the German Shepherd.
Honestly, I didn't watch, but
Yeah. Oh, really?
but
That's
There,
surprising. you
Dave,
didn't
we're
watch-
even on dumb questions.
Yeah. Well, the Dread dog didn't win because it was smoking weed.
I know.
Obviously, that was
I
what
know
the
that.
problem was there. Jordan Morris, you are a fantastic kid, and what a career you've had so far, and more to come from you. Thanks so much for coming on our show.
thank you
buddy.
so much. I appreciate it.